So, this is Jacob Nash, and we're going to be looking at 78 different ACT questions that are very tricky. Usually when I try to make a long video like this, it doesn't work, so if that happens, then I'm going to be very mad. But, anyways, let's look at these. These are some pretty hard, well, actually not all of them are hard, but some can be a little tricky. So let's look at this number 1. What's the least common denominator of these fractions? Well, what is a least common denominator? It's basically a denominator that they can all have. Basically, for example, if you were trying to add these, that's what you would do. Now, it's always going to be bigger than what they are. So because that's how it has to be for it to not be a fraction. But anyways, like a fraction that is a denominator or a decimal. So what do you do to find this? Well, you just simply do something called prime factorization, which is just breaking apart the denominators as much as you can. So this 35 here, that would just be 5 times 7. Can't break that apart anymore because it's prime numbers. That's why it's called prime factorization. 77, we can do 7 and 11. 22, we can do 2 and 11. And then, to find the common denominator, you just multiply all the different ones. So, we will multiply these. Notice we didn't do those because it's the same. And that is 770. Alright. Next. The average weight of 10 boys is 77 pounds. If the youngest boy is excluded, the average weight instead is 78 pounds. What is the weight of youngest boy? There's also like mind twister ones like this that are dumb, but you just have to kind of think about it. Well, what is an average? An average we know is the sum of something divided by the total. Well, at first the total is this, and the average is this. So if we're trying to find the sum, then the sum would just be 770. Coincidence that was the answer to the last problem. So then the sum, there's only 9 kids, and the average is 78, so we do the same thing. It's almost like just algebra right here. The sum of their weights must be 702. So the youngest must be 770 minus 702, which is 68. So it wasn't as hard as it seemed, but they just do dumb things like that, don't they? Alright, next. It says the positive integers x and y are relatively prime. That means their greatest common factor is 1. Sometimes they have things that don't really matter, so we don't even really need to know that. So the only thing that matters is this. 1/2 plus 1/3 times 1/4 divided by 1/5 equals x over y. Then x plus y is what? Well, this is another kind of mind twister one, because if you're seeing this, you're like, how do I find x? How do I find y? Well, all you have to do is just combine these fractions, and I would do that definitely by typing in the calculator, but you have to do order of operations. Do the multiplication first, then you divide that, then you add 1/2, and that ends up being 11/12 equals x over y. Well, then that means x plus y is 11 plus 12, which is 23. So it wasn't, once again, as hard. You have to know on the ACT that nothing is ever too hard. It always seems like it is. That's the point. Really, this test is, in my opinion, dumb, because a lot of the things are never what you would do in real life. And so in no way does this prepare you for college, in my opinion. But whatever. Alright, here's another mind twister one. The 358th digit would be what in this? So if you see a line over it, that means it's going to keep being 3178. Well, someone might try to do, oh, I guess I just have to write them all out until I get to number 358. There's a quicker way. Here's what you do. Since we're trying to find number 358, how many digits are there? There's 4, so you divide it by that. That is 89.5. Well, here's what you have to do. If there's 4 digits, then think about like 4 checkpoints. We have 0. That's really the 4th one. So we'll put that there. We have 0.25, we have 0.5, we have 0.75. So this is the first digit, second digit, third, fourth. So since we have a 0.5 answer, or since 89.5, then that means it's halfway through to when it's a whole number, which means it's the second number, which is 1. So I hope that made sense. So if there happen to be more than 4 digits, then you would have to do it a little bit differently. But usually it's 4 when they do that. Alright. Now we have something here. To promote a new brand of shoes, a shoe store will run a promotion using a jar of 3 red balls that are 10% off. So we just usually want to write what they say. 10% off. Okay. Then there's 2 whites that are 30% off. And then there's 1 green that's 60% off. And they're basically, you just draw the ball and you could get a discount, any of those discounts. Usually it costs $60, so let's put that off to the side. Now, what's the average discount? Oh, well, it's going to be sum over the number of things that there are. How many total kinds of discounts are there? You might be tempted to say 3, but it was 3 plus 2 plus 1, so it's actually 6 because there's of how many marbles there are. That's really what it is. But now we have to figure out what discount would you get if you got one of those balls. Well, 10%, we would just multiply 60, which is the total, times 0.1, and we'll just do the same thing for all these. 0.3, 0.6. So this just shows you that you really need to know your percents if you don't. All you really do is just move the decimal 2 points, but you can kind of do it without thinking once you get used to it. So those are what discounts we would have. So we have to now put this in for the sum because we're trying to find the average. Well, we have 3 of the $6 discounts possible. We have 2 of the $18 discounts possible. And we have 1 of the 36 discounts possible. When you type that in calculator, you get $15 is the average discount they could get. Alright, here's a real dumb one that's pretty hard. Anila and Jacob plan to attend a concert in Brady. Anila will drive 375 miles, so let's just draw that, at a constant speed of 75 kilometers per hour. Okay, that's Anila. So there's 2 things going on. There are some pretty often like this, and if you see 2 things, you might want to just do something like that. And then Jacob, oh no, we're still on Anila. She has a 30-minute break. I'll just write that, okay. And then Jacob has to drive 600 kilometers. And he will drive at a speed of this, 90, for 2 hours. Well, now here's where we have our sort of like proportions and conversions. Think about it, 90 kilometers per 1 hour for 2 hours. The hours cancel out, so you multiply those things. So he's gone 80 miles so far. Or, sorry, kilometers, because it's, for some reason, kilometers. I don't think British people take the ACT, so I don't know why kilometers. So, we'll get to Anila. Let's just... Oh. Gosh, I always do that. 600 minus 180. That means he still has 420 miles left to go. Then we see that after that, then he has a 1 hour break. So he's already gone 2 hours. You add 1 hour. Now he's gone 3 hours. It probably, me already knowing what the question is going to ask, I think we should just look at what it's going to ask. It's going to say, how much earlier should Jacob leave than Anila for them to be there at the same time? So we're trying to find something about hours. So 3 hours so far for Jacob, all right? Then he goes 70 kilometers per hour, but we have to figure out how long will that take him. Okay. Oh my gosh. Sometimes this thing is just pathetic. This thing I wish I could just X out. Oh, it's not going away. Oh my gosh. Okay, so 70 kilometers per hour. And he's going 420 kilometers. Well, since this time we can't cancel anything out, so we're just going to make a proportion instead. So that would mean... Oh, sorry, I don't know why I put a 1 there. That's x. Okay, so 70x equals 420. That means 6 hours more. So that means he goes 9 hours total. Okay, so that's all we know for him. All right, now Anila, let's go over to her. So 375 kilometers is her total distance, right? Yeah. So she's gonna go... She goes the same thing the whole time, but she just has a 30-minute break. So, okay. And so, let's see. We're going to have to do a proportion again, because there's nothing that would cancel out. And once again, I should have done an X. All right, so that would end up being, assuming you know how to solve proportions, 5.5, which if you know... Well, we can just leave it as that, because that's already what the answer choices are. But she also has... oh, wait, sorry. I was getting ahead of myself. 375 divided by 75 is 5. Sorry. And you add the 0.5 because of her 30-minute break. So 9 hours is how long it takes Jacob. You subtract that from 5.5 to get that 4.5, or sorry, 3.5 hours is how earlier Jacob would have to leave, since he's that much longer. You might want to skip the video ahead a few seconds, because I realize my calculator's downstairs. So hang on a second, please. Okay, so sorry about that. I'm back now. All right, here's the next problem. This has to do with sequences. Luckily, they gave you the sequence formula, but they don't, this is the arithmetic one. I honestly haven't seen the geometric one that much, so that may not be something that you have to know. It might still be good to know, but you definitely want to know this formula right here. Let's talk about what the different things mean. AN is simply just the answer. A1 is the first term in the sequence, so the first number that there is in a sequence. N is what you plug in. So this is almost like a function. N is like X, AN is like Y. N is the thing that you plug in, whatever number of something you want to find. So if you want to find the 17th, you put that in there. And then D is the common difference, so how much does it change each time? So it says the third term of something is 5/2, so we'll just say number 3 is 5/2, and then number 6 is 1/4. And we need to know what number 7 is. Well, once again, this is a twister, because you might... Okay, well, I need to plug in 7 for N, but then you might think, well, I don't know what A1 is, and I also don't know what D is. Well, unfortunately, that means we're going to have to find them some other way. When in doubt, you can create an algebraic equation. In this case, we can do a elimination sort of thing, where we have, it's like a system of equations. So we'll write both the equations we know. We don't know A1, so this is the equation for the third. So it will be this. And what we can do, this is always what you do if there's two unknown variables. So two unknown variables, do what I just wrote. Reason why is because something can cancel out. We can make this cancel out. So we combine these fractions, let's add them. That is, oh no, we would subtract them because if we added them, that wouldn't make the A1s cancel out. So subtract them, 2.25, and then this is 2 minus 5, negative 3D. That means D is negative 0.75. Well, we still don't know what A1 is. Well, we don't have to, because since 6 and 7 are right beside each other, we don't even have to use this thing to find 7. We can just say, well, if it decreases by 0.75, this is 6, the sixth term, and so it would end up being this. So negative 1/2. All right. The probability of James being chosen to bat first is 1/9. What are the odds in favor? Odds in favor is something that you might not know. It's not as simple as it seems. It's actually a ratio of something yes to no. So that's what odds in favor is. Yes to no. So what is the chance that he will? 1/9. What's the chance that he won't? 8/9, whatever. And so when there's actually a ratio, you really divide them. So it will be 1/9 divided by 8/9. Oh my gosh, how many of those pages am I going to create? All right, so that would really be, we flip the fraction, that would be 9/72ths. I don't know what you'd say, 70 seconds. And so that simplifies to 1/8. You could type that in a calculator if you don't know how to do that well, but you would have to do parentheses. All right. Oh, let's see this. 50-foot rectangular swimming pool with vertical sides 3 feet deep at the shallow end and 10 feet deep at the deep end. So we know it's 50 feet long. It's first 3 feet, then it's 10 feet. So it must be like that. And it's asking you what is the angle that slopes downwards. So that would actually we draw like an imaginary line here. What is this angle? What is it? Well, and it's telling us that, well, by the answer choices we would have to use tangent, but this is the opposite, this is the adjacent. Well, don't make the mistake of thinking that you would plug in 10. It would actually be 7, because 10 is the full thing. So it would be tangent of angle is O over A, so 750. But we're trying to find the angle, so we'd have to get rid of the tangent by tan -1 on both sides. So that's what the angle equals. So not that hard, I guess. Oh, here are the kinds that I consider to be the most hard of all. And let me tell you why. Well, the ACT has never given a clear way to solve these. They just say things that happen to be true, but there's never been a clear way to solve these. What I usually do is I plug in numbers, or I call these numbers. So it says for real numbers A, B, and C, what is always true with those two things? But so I just assign a number, but that doesn't always work because depending on the type of number, it could be different. So we need to give try it with two different types of numbers, and they have to be different. So let's try 4, 3, and 2. Those are all positive, but and they follow those rules. B has to be greater than 0, so let's just say that we'll do this 4 and 3 again. Let's just do -6. How about that? That's a negative number, just to make it more accurate, because sometimes it might be true for the numbers you picked, but it's not true for every possible number that's like that. So absolute value of A greater than B. Well, that's true. So we're starting with this set of numbers. All right, A, C, that's true. B, C, that's true. So you might be tempted to pick E, but let's not do that yet. Let's see what it's like with this set of numbers now. 4, 3, okay, that's true. 4, 6, because the absolute value of -6 is 6. That's not true. 3, 6, that's not true. So the answer is actually A. But that's why these are hard, because what if you just happen to not think of 4, 3, and -6? You could just think that it's right. So that's the hardest kind. It really is. Okay. Now we're on this. Okay. What is the perimeter of DEF? Okay, well, this is kind of just like ratios. So 6, 6, 10. Well, we already see a 3 and a 5. So this has to be 3 also. That's just kind of like a relationship. So we add those. And you might be tempted to choose A because that's the missing side. Don't make that mistake. It's going to be 11 because 3 plus 3 plus 5, since it asked for the perimeter. I'm going to try to go a little bit faster in the video now because, remember, there's 78. That's only number 11. So I'm going to just not give as much explanation. Sorry about that, but it would make this video probably hours long. All right. It's okay for this. Questions like this, sometimes what it tells you doesn't matter. So we just need to see what angle or minor arc has the greatest degree measure. Well, let's talk about arcs. The arc always matches what angle is near it. So if there's an angle here, and this was the arc is basically just like a part of the circle edge. So let's try LM. LM is right here. Well, it's going to have to match this, so it's going to be greater than 90 degrees. We can tell because that angle is. All right, now MK, arc MK. Well, this one is less than 90 degrees, so we know it's not that if there's already one that was greater than that. All right. JMG, that's this. Well, it's tangent to it, so that would be exactly 90 degrees. Same thing with LHK. And then MJL, well, that's less than 90 degrees, so it's A. Okay. The math club will pay Ken $5 for preparing the cake, and also pay him for the cost of the cake mix. 173 plus 1, or 267, with sale tax of 5% on these two items. That's key because there's not going to be tax on that. Alright, what's the total amount that they will pay him? Well, let's first do the part that has tax. We're going to add these. We're going to multiply it by, we're not going to do this because we're not trying to find 5% of that. We're trying to do 5%. So it would actually be 1.05. You just always add 100 to it. 100% to it. Okay, and then you would just add the $5 to that they would pay him. That happens to be $9.62. Alright. A depth of a pond at 180 centimeters is being reduced 1 centimeter a week. So you subtract from it 1 centimeter a week, so we'll just do W. And then there's another one that is 60 centimeters for each, and it's half a centimeter a week. How many weeks? So we're trying to find W. Well, that's just, we can set them equal to each other. And assuming you know how to do algebra, when you solve that, it would be 40. So whenever you might have gotten to that point and you didn't know what to do, you always just can set things equal to each other when it's something like that. Alright, here's one. Alright, a park has a shape and dimensions in blocks given below. A water fountain is halfway in between B and D. Well, I guess that would mean that it's right here. And so it's saying, what is the location, which of the following is the location of the water fountain from point A? Well, first you might be trying to find this distance, but it's, if you see that the answer choices, if you see that the answer choices are, say, east and north, that's really like coordinates. So we would have to find the coordinates of right there. Well, it's going to be the midpoint of B and D. So B is at 10, 0. This is at, D is at 9, 7, or 7, 9, right? 7, 9. And the midpoint formula that you need to know is that you just add the x's and y's and you divide them by 2. So that would mean 17 over 2, which is 8.5 or 8.5. And you don't even have to solve the other one because usually they're nice and at least there's only one that has that. Okay. This is 10 is the radius of the smaller one, or the bigger one, and it's the diameter of the smaller one. What is the area of the shaded region? Whenever you have something like that, shaded region, you do the total area minus part. So the part in this case will be the smaller circle, the total will be the bigger circle. So the area of a circle is not 2 pi r. That's something you sometimes get mixed up with. It's pi r squared. So this is the total, r squared. R is 10, so r squared is going to be 100. And then subtracted from the r squared, r is 5. So squared is 25. So it would be 75 pi. So that was the big circle, that was the small circle. All right. Okay, here's something that's a common problem. Just saying, but it's a little bit tricky, but it's not that bad. Okay, Francisco rents a car for 2 days, so anytime we see a number, we'll just write that down. He has $2.55 to pay. Seahorse cars. So whenever you see something like this, you're gonna automatically think that you're gonna have to set these equal, or that not always that you'll set them equal, but at least there will be some sort of system of equations. So seahorse is 50 per day, 0.25 a mile. All right, the other one, it says, is 60 a day and 0.2 a mile. And which one will give him more miles? So we're trying to find M. So it's good to write what you're trying to find sometimes. 255. So the total is 255 that he has to spend. So we're going to set these equal to 255. Luckily, this looks like a system of equations, but we don't have to do the elimination thing because even you might think we don't know D and M, but we do know D because it said 2 days. So we solve for M, and assuming you know how to do algebra, M would be 620 for this one, and it would be 675 for this one. So it's 55 more for the second one, which was ocean blue. So B. Oh, here's a kind of strange one. A hotel has 80 rooms, so we can just write that down, 80 rooms. Here, and it's basically saying the previous years, the owners constructed a table below to show the usual occupancy rates and their probabilities for occurring during a summer season. Based on probability, what is the expected number of rooms that can occur on a day? So we basically kind of have to, it's sort of like averaging. It's not really average, but we're just finding kind of like the occupancy rate that is in between these. So I guess it sort of is averaging, but the way that we're going to do it is we're just going to do this for all of them. Just whatever's in the table, we multiply those two things that are beside each other. And then, of course, I run out of room. Okay. And so when you solve that, it is 0.93 of the occupancy rate. Because we're just trying to find the occupancy rate, and we then would multiply that by 80 rooms that there are. That is 58. That's the number of rooms that there would be. Alright, this is a real trickster. Now, ones like this, it's good to look at the answer choices. What are the answer choices? They are not numbers. Well, I mean, they are, but they're not like completely simplified numbers. So that means there is no point, it's a waste of time to simplify your numbers. So that's what we know so far. Alright, so it says Shima will mix 1 fluid ounce of fertilizer and water for every square feet of oil. So we'll just say 1 fluid ounce equals 40 square foot. So I'll just do this. At this rate, which of the following expressions shows the number of gallons for 0.5 acres? Well, sometimes then this can seem confusing because you're like, well, neither of those are the units that I gave. Well, you simply just have to convert them by these units. And in this case, if you see that the bigger one is what you already have, then the answer must be smaller for converting it. So that would mean you would have to divide. Dividing makes something smaller. So we have to divide 1 by 128. So really, it's 128 gallon for, okay, now we have to do 40 divided by 43,560 acres. So now that's what we know. It's really 128 gallons, 1 over 128 gallons for every 40 over 43,560 acres. But still, we're trying to figure out for 0.5 acres, so this is now becoming a proportion. So we're going to do gallons over gallons, acres over acres. We'll put on the top of what we know. We know this. That's what the problem said. We're trying to find that many for 0.5 acres. So you would just do the proportion. So you cross multiply. You would cross multiply those. So that would end up being 0.5 over 128. And then over here, this would end up being 40x over 43,560. Well, that's, then we kind of have to cross multiply again, because the reason why we have to do it 2 times is because there's fractions on there. So that would make us have, and remember, we're not actually typing this into the calculator since the answers aren't that. This, and then this. And to solve for x, you would divide by 128 times 40. And it may be in a slightly different order, but the answer is C. So that was just kind of a little bit annoying. Alright, this one actually isn't hard. It's just something that you need to know. Let A and B be independent events. PA is the probability that event A will occur. And PA something B, I don't know what that symbol is specifically called, is a probability that A and B both will occur. So, which of the following must be true? Well, whenever things both occur, you have to multiply the events. So this is PA, this is PB, so they're going to have to be multiplied, so the answer is D. So it's actually, that one actually is not that hard. Alright, here we have basically it's saying, what is the measure of this? Well, we will have to use some trigonometry here. So we can just make this a triangle. We know that this is going to be -3 length by that point. This is 4. So the hypotenuse must be 5. Hopefully you know your 3, 4, 5 triangle. So if we're trying to find, well, we can't find that angle yet, but let's just find this. We'll just call it alpha. And so what, oh, and it said we have to find the cosine. So cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. This is adjacent to this hypotenuse. So we already know no answer would have 3 in it. So adjacent over hypotenuse, that is 4 over 5. And here's a rule to know. Whenever there's something like this where, see, we just found this, the cosine of that, but it's actually going to be the same as that because you take the absolute value of it. So if this happened to be negative, then this would be positive, but it's not negative, so it doesn't matter. It's just the same thing. Okay. Alright, here's another one that's kind of annoying. Alright. What is not true? Okay, so AB equals EF. Or is parallel to it. AB, EF. Oh, so we have to use the information that told us. AC, F, and D are collinear. So this is the same line, basically, is what it's saying. BCE are collinear. So this is the same line. AEF are right angles. So AB would have to equal EF if both of these lines are, or if both of those are lines. Why did it just do that? Okay. So it said not true, so it's not A. DE is perpendicular to BE. Perpendicular, yeah, because of the right angle. So that's not, that is true, so that's not it. ACB is congruent to FCE. It has to be, because those are angles across from each other. That's always what it's like. Triangle BAC is similar to EFC. Again, if those angles are the same, these are pretty much just mirrored. So it's going to be that one, and here's why. CE equals ED. Well, how could that be true? Because this could just go on forever and ever, couldn't it? So it wouldn't be at the same angle, it would be like this. So that's not true. Alright, here's something that you might not know. It says, which of the following expressions gives the number of permutations of 15 objects taken at 5 at a time? So, what is permutations? What the heck is that? I know I didn't learn that in high school, so what is that? It is basically the number of arrangements that are possible. It's not the same thing as combinations, but that's not what we're going to talk about anyways. But the permutations formula is this. And even if you didn't remember exactly what permutations was, if you remember this formula, that's going to be more useful to you. Because then you could just know, basically, it would have to be D. But let's confirm why. So, N is the number of things that there are. There's 15 objects. So that's why we put in 15 here, put in 15 here. R is the rate, and it says 5 at a time, so that's why 5 goes in there. So that's not that hard, but it is if you don't know what permutations is, so now you do. Alright, so if log base A of x equals S, and log A of y is t, then, yeah, I'm not going to say that. But is it 2 times s plus t? Is it s plus t? Is it Forrest Gump? Is it Toost or St? Which one? Well, this is a little bit, might seem a little bit tricky. Whenever you have a squared, it can always just go to the side of it. So you have to kind of think, why would the test takers make this question? Because they're trying to get you to do something with that. Well, also there's another thing. Whenever there's two things multiplied in this thing called the argument in the parentheses, that means that it really can be separated and they were added. And same thing, if it was x divided by y, then that means they can be separated and it was subtracted. That's just logarithm rules. So we can change it to this. Well, what did it say? It said this equals s and this equals t, so it's a. Yeah, okay. So 24 of 78. Oh, we gotta hurry this thing up, don't we? Oh, not even a third through. Esteban and his family are making care packages to send to children at camp. Each contains 5 pens, 2 notebooks, 3 envelopes, 12 cookies, and 5 candy bars. Esteban and his family have already made 7. And these are the materials that remain. 3 boxes of pens, 10 pens per box. Well, they're just trying to confuse you. Really, just multiply all these numbers to get the totals. And you didn't have to there. And it's saying how many additional ones can they make. Well, then in that case, then this doesn't matter, this number 7. We're not going to use that. So we have to divide these all by how many things it takes to make one, which are the numbers that it said. And then that tells us how many more they can make, which is 6, 10, 8, 7, 9. Well, the answer is going to be 6. Whenever you have something like this, it has to be the least one. Because, think about it, after they make 6, there's no more of that. You can't make a full one without all of these things. So it would be pointless. So it always is the least one when there's something like that. Okay, let's see. A fabric store sells flannel and calico fabrics. Joan pays $25 for 3 yards of flannel and $11 for 1 yard. Or sorry. Oh yeah, one yard of. Wait, 4 yards of calico. So 3 yards of flannel and 4 yards of calico. So I was doing this wrong. So so there's 2 situations, yeah. Chris and Joan, sorry. So this is going to actually be a system of equations. When in doubt, because it's saying 1 yard of calico, when in doubt, we can just do that. So we'll just say this. And like I said, whenever there's 2 variables you don't know, you have to do elimination. So how can we make these f's go away? Because we're trying to find c. We can do that by doing a -3. So what would that change things to? That would be a -33. That would be a -3, and that would be a -6. Combine these, this is -8. That cancels out. This is -2c. So c is 4. There you go. Alright, in this figure below, small squares are equal in area. Which of the following expressions represents the area of the shaded? Okay, so 1. So we don't have to do the part minus whole because we can just see this is 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Oh, all of the the area of ABCD is 1 square unit. Well, you can tell this is 5/6 of the full thing, and this is 3/4 of the full thing. So 5/6 times 3/4 is what it is, E. All right. Jamie claims, if a triangle is in set A, it is not isosceles. Don't be confused by this. You might not know what that is. That's okay. She later discovers that that is a counterexample. So, or no, that this is a counterexample. So what does that mean? That means it has to be isosceles and in set A if it was a counterexample. How it wouldn't be a counterexample if it wasn't that. That means it proved it wrong. All right, parallelogram ABCD is graphed. And this, side note, this was actually meant for like more than one question. You know how it's like that. So some of this information doesn't matter. Really, none of that does. What's the area of ABCD? Well, the area of a parallelogram, pretty much for our purposes in the ACT, any four-sided shape that isn't Napoleon's hat, basically, that's not a trapezoid, the area is going to be base times height. So what's the base? 5, height 3, so the answer is 15. All right. Oh, this is a super tricky one. Not the hardest, but it's kind of tricky. So, and same thing with this one. This was meant for more than one problem. So we only need the table. We don't need this. So we're gonna refer back to the table if we need to. So it's saying basically it was discovered that 15 residents replied that they replied that they approved incorrectly classified that they did. So that means there's 15 wrong who were non-students. Well, if we see there's 3 kinds, high school, college, non-student. So that means those 15 that were wrong, they have to be high school and college. So we can just create this equation right here. All right, after correcting the errors, 60% of college students replied that they approved. And now it's asking what percent of high school students replied that they approved. Well, the only way that we could know this is we have to know how many to add to the approved high school. So see, high schoolers that approved, well, we can't use 30 because some of these 15 incorrect were high schoolers. How many? Well, we can only find out by this information they gave us. So we see in the table above, 14 college students approved. Well, that was before they figured out there was a problem. There's going to be something added to it. We'll just say C. It's going to be some of these 15. Well, we're going to set this equal to, well, we know that 60%, this is going to be the total of college students that approve. So is this, since we're setting it equal. So 60% of the total, well, it said 30 in the table above, it said 30, there were 30 total. We had to add C to it because there's going to be some added. So once you solve for C, assuming you know how to do algebra, it is 10. So 10 of the 15 that were wrong were college, 5 were high school. So then we're going to look up here. If we're trying to find a percent, it's part over whole. So the part, well, 30 approved, we just found out 5 more did, so it's really 35. So it's going to be 35 out of, add all those together. That is 70%. So that's the answer. So that was like some kind of thing that's hard to think of. Like maybe it seems easy now, but it's a little bit hard to think of off the top of your head. So that's why it's one of the hard ones. All right, here we go. We have, it says M is perpendicular to N. The measure of 1 is 3x minus 10. The measure of 2 is 2x plus 10. What is the measure of 3? Well, anytime you see something like this, you're always going to automatically know that they would want you to find x. So x, in this case, would be 20 once you solve. Well, that's not our answer. At least they weren't mean enough to put a choice there to try to make you say that. But we know that if this is a right angle, then this also is right angle. So angle 2 plus angle 3 have to equal 90. So angle 2 we can find by plugging this in here. 2 times 20, 40. Plus 10 is 50. So we are trying to find angle C. Don't know why I drew 3, sorry. Or angle, oh, it is angle 3, whatever. We're trying to find angle 3. The total is 90, so angle 3 is 40 degrees, right? Oh, here's one that I really don't like, all right? Because basically, it's like what I said before, they don't give you a clear way how you would solve this. It's like a weird backwards thing. You would just have to go through every choice until you find the right one. So, the greatest common factor of two whole numbers is 10. So, greatest common factor is 10. The least common multiple is 120. If you don't know what those things are, then there's nothing that you can do. The greatest common factor basically is a number that goes into both, and it's the greatest number that does. Okay? And we need to figure out how to find it. Well, how do you find it? Well, we're going to have to do prime factorization again. But really, there is a shortcut on this. To find a greatest common factor, you can just divide all of the numbers by that and see if it's a whole number. It wouldn't be for that. It wouldn't be for that. There would be a whole number for C and D and E. But is it the greatest? Well, we'll have to see. Now let's go on the least common multiple. The least common multiple is just something that's always going to be a number bigger than the numbers. And you multiply all the different, I don't know. You multiply, here, it's probably better for me to write it down. So let's just say that whenever you have something like this, we're trying to go as fast as we can, right? So we're going to just have to choose a random one. I know what the answer is, so this video is not longer. I'm just going to choose that one. The answer is E, so I'm going to show you how you would figure that out. You would do the same thing for C and D too. But there's no point in me showing you the same thing 3 times. So I'll just show you it once. But just saying, that's why this question is done, because you would have to do it for all of them before you figured out what it was. So we have to do prime factorization. Remember what that is? That you just break apart the number as much as you can. So it's going to be the same here. I'm not going to write there. So for greatest common factor, you multiply the same ones, but no repeats. I think that was already the first question that we did, right? With the fractions. So the same ones, 3 is not the same one, but we're not doing repeats. So the answer is 10. All right. Least common multiple, though, you do the same thing, except you multiply all of them that are this, except the ones that are the same for different numbers. So a same for different numbers is 2, for example. This is not the same for different numbers, it's the same for same numbers. So all except for the same for different numbers. That's all we would do. Wait. Whenever you have something like this, this is what makes it kind of tricky. You would want to start on the one that does have the same one. So we'll start here, and then we'll just do this. So it's really like the maximum. You multiply the maximum amount that there is on one, which is 3. So that's 120. I know that might seem confusing, but unfortunately, that's the only way that you could do this one that I know of. So that's how you would know that it was E. All right. Okay, it's saying the circle is centered at 1, 3, and it passes through 4, 7. Well, what do we know about a circle? It's like this. If it passes through that, then that has to be on the edge of it. That's what we know. And I'm not saying that's exactly what it would look like, but anyways. The set of points are, well, they have to be a certain amount from 1, 3. So we know that it couldn't be those. Really, just by that, we would know that it's A, because all the coordinates are a certain amount from 1, 3 if that's the center, because that's the only thing that it can be. But you could use the distance formula to confirm that the distance is 5 from that. And the distance formula, I'll just write it. It is this. That's a good one to know. So there are a lot of shortcuts. In this case, the shortcut is just knowing that that's what a circle's like. There's no other possibility. Oh my gosh. This is a crazy problem. Okay. The art club designed and made banners for the school. 2 colors, blue and white. Each banner had to have 1/4 yard of blue, 1/4 yard of white. They at first were going to make only 500, but they figured out that it would be cheaper to buy bolts. And in each bolt, there's 10 yards of white and 12 yards of blue. Or other way around, whatever. How many extra banners could they make to make at least 500? Well, this might seem confusing, but really what this is saying is basically they figure out that it's cheaper to buy bolts. So imagine you have Cliff Bars or something. You could buy 1 Cliff Bar maybe like at a Home Depot at checkout. But you could also buy a box of them maybe at Food Line. So they figured out that it's cheaper to buy boxes, but the way that it is, it wouldn't come out evenly to 500. And we all know that you couldn't just go up to the cashier at Food Line and say, "Oh, can I just open this box and buy only one?" No, you can't. So what's saying is that there would end up being more than 500. So there's 3 things that we need to find. First is how much material would they need for 500? Then how many bolts would they need? And then how much extra would it be? Okay. So how do we figure out how much material for 500 would be needed? Well, just this. We multiply that by 500, each one. So the answer, so for these, you would need 125 of blue, yards of blue, whatever, and you would need 187.5 of yards of white. All right, well, now we need to figure out how many bolts would they need. Okay, well, if each is 10 for the blue, so we would just divide this. You would need 13, because once again, you can't do 12 and a half. You think they could chop that thing in half? No, they'd get kicked out of the store. And then for the other one, you would divide by 12. And so, once again, the answer would be 16, because you can't have a piece of it. Well, now, how much extra is that? Well, and now instead it would actually be 130 and 192 yards that you would get from that. So that's how many yards we would have. Now we have to figure out how many could we make from that. Well, once again, we have to just divide it. Well, we have to divide it by how much it is to make 1. So that would mean 520, 512. So, and it just like the thing, remember when there was the care packages, you have to do the less. If this means it would make 520, it would make 512. Well, really, we would only have 12 extra, because once you run out of one, you can't make any more. All right. Here's something that's a little bit weird. So obviously this would take a long time to divide out, but there's something that we need to know, because when they have the i's, they're trying to confuse you. I to the 0 is 1. You need to know that. I to the 1 is I. That makes sense. Anything to 0 is 1. Anything to 1 is itself. So, but you need to know that I squared is negative 1. And I cubed is negative I. So that and there's more, but that's all we need to know right now. So that would take a long time to multiply out, time that you don't have. So instead, what we just have to do is think, all right, we have to do it the way that would make teachers mad, but just know that there would be terms in between. So we'll just say that we know that it's going to have to be x cubed. Well, that doesn't help us, does it? Because if you see, they all have that. We know it's not this one because there's going to be terms in between. Then x, this part right here, sorry, not x, I, that would end up being negative 27 I. But if you know I cubed is actually I cubed is actually negative I. So then if this is negative I, it would make this positive, and we don't need that 3 anymore. So we know pretty much that's what they want you to choose. That isn't what it would be because there's terms in between. So we know that it's also not that. So it's A or D. So 50-50 chance. If you were running out of time, you just do that. But how do we figure out if it is A or D without multiplying it out completely? Well, since we see a cubed here, how could it be 9? It couldn't be. It would have to be 27 because 9 is not a cube thing that there is. Okay, so that's like the shortcut way. Of course, there's a longer way, but why would you do that? So, all right. Here is matrices. Maybe you don't know what that is. Well, it's saying what values of k, m, and n are not possible. Well, you're multiplying all these things. So E times D, that's N, M, MK. DC, MK, KN, CE, KN. Why did this thing not draw? KN. N, M, right. AE is N. AC, MN, KN. Well, here's a trick. Even if you didn't know anything about this, usually it's good to pick out how is one of these different. They all have the same letters in them, but if you notice, the middle letters are the same for 4 of them, but not for the last ones. That's the answer, but the real reason why is that it always has to be the same, so that's why it's not possible. Oh, right. Okay, so number 37 of 78. Let's see, what percent done are we? We are 47% done. Wow, so cool. That's not cool, actually. All right, so it's saying Hugo's math class is based, his grade is based on the total from unit exams that are 100 points and a final exam that's 200 points. How many points total is that? Is 600 points. That's something good to know. You always should do things like that. So we see a table of what makes a certain grade, saying those were his test grades. What could not be his final exam grade? Well, how about we add all these together? If you add all those together, that is 344 points. And now let's figure out how many points out of 600 would get him an A or a B. Well, we have to multiply it by 0.8 and 0.9 because that's an 80 or a 90, according to the table. So it has to be greater than 400 480 points, but less than 540 for it to be a B. So essentially we have like an inequality. What? Oh my gosh. Do you see how many of those I've added? Because of this stupid thing? So what could this be? And you could just plug in the numbers and it would be 196. Alright, what is the real value of t for f of t equals t? What the heck does this mean? Well, it basically is saying that f of t is the same thing as f of x and t is the same thing as x. So it's basically saying when you plug in one of these values for x, it has to be f of x or it's not a real number. So let's try -1. -1, that would be 0, so it's not -1, so a and d are gone. Let's try 2. That would be 2/3, so that is not equal to 2, so it's not that, because remember they have to equal each other. -2 plus 1 is -1, -2, or sorry, 2 divided by -1 is -2, so that's the same thing. And then 1 plus 1 is 2, 2 divided by 2 is 1, so both of those turned out to be the same thing as what you plugged in. Alright. To become a contestant on a quiz show, a person must guess correctly in a correct order for Rockstar age from youngest to oldest. They know the age of the oldest one, but they randomly guess the orders of the other one. What's the probability that they'll get it correct? Well, we have to think. There's 4 different ones. If you already know one of them, then that's down to 3. Once you guess the third one, then there's 2 left, and then there's 1 left after that. So the fractions would be it's a 1/3 chance that you would get the third one right. It's a 4 out of 4 chance that you would get the oldest one right, because it said that they know. And then 1/2 chance that you'll get the other one right, and 1 out of 1 chance you would get the other one right if you got the others right. So you multiply these together, and that's 1/6. All right. Oh wow, this one sure is fun to do. So what's equivalent to this? Well, we're gonna have to get a common denominator. We don't, luckily, for the denominator because there's no x. So we can just type that in the calculator, and then we could push the math button and fraction to see that the fraction is 5/12. Now, for this part, how do we get a common denominator? Well, we just have to make them the same. How can we make 3 and 2 the same? Well, if they could both be 6, we know that. And it doesn't always have to be the least common denominator when you're doing this, because you could just simplify it later. So you have to do the same thing to the top what you do to the bottom. This would make both denominators 6, so we can combine the things, and it would be this. Now we have to multiply that by the reciprocal of this, and that would make it be 24x plus 36 over 30. Well, we can simplify this. These can all, you can divide out a 6 out of both of them. So that would be 4x plus 9, oh, 6, sorry, and 5. So that is D. Number 41, an automobile license plate can have 6 characters. The first 3 are a digit 0 through 9, sorry. The last 3 can be letters 1 through 26 letters of the alphabet. How many different combos could there be? Well, oh, and it said they can be repeated. Well, there are 0 through 9, that's 10. So the first three, there's 10, 10, 10. You always multiply things. Then there's 26, 26, 26. You multiply all those, and it's that. That's pretty simple if you know that you have to multiply that. Oh, here's, once again, the kind that I call the hardest kind, because it is the hardest kind. Because it's just dumb. So A, B, and C, for those, A has to be greater than B, and C has to be less than 0. So what must be true? Well, here's the trick for these. Well, for A and B, you can see that there's fractions, and whenever something that you might know is that when you divide for an inequality, you flip the sign, and it makes the things gone if you do it on both sides. So this would end up like this. This would end up like this. So it's A, because we know that's the same thing as that. But once again, that's why this is the hardest kind, because you might just not think about that off the top of your head. Alright. L and M forms 4 angles, A, B, C, and D. The measure of B is 3.5 times A. So if you multiply A by 3.5, you get the measure of B. Which of the following is the measure of A? Well, if there's 4 angles, A and C have to equal each other if there's lines M and N like that. So B and D have to equal each other, so they're the same. So we're going to have 360 is the full measure, and we're going to divide by A, because it's really C, but C and A are equal each other. And then now B and D, that's going to be 3.5A, 3.5 times A. And so that's 360 equals, minus 9A equals 0. And solving for A, it would be 40 degrees. Alright, a sequence is defined as all positive integers is this. Well, you might be a little bit confused at first because you might think, that doesn't look like the usual arithmetic one. Well, it's not the same exactly, because this is a slightly different thing, but you just have to take what they give you. So we know S1 equals 3. Okay, what is S4? Well, unfortunately, for this one, it's just kind of a dumb one because you're going to just have to find, basically, if you see this part, S n minus 1, that means whatever the last thing was. So if we're trying to find S2, whatever the last thing was 3. The number is 2 that we're trying to find. You add 1, so S2 equals 9. And then we have to try and find S3. The last thing was 9. What we're trying to find is 3. You add 1. That means that it's 22. S4, finally, we're on the thing that we're trying to find. The last thing was 22. We're trying to find 4. We add 1. S4 is 49. So that was, for some reason, the only way that you could do it. So, not that hard, actually, but it might take some thinking. But that's the point of why I'm doing this, because if you see a problem like that, then you'll be able to do it. Okay. A rectangle, consider all rectangles that the rectangle's length is greater than width. And they are a whole number of inches. Which of the following perimeters in inches is not possible for such a rectangle? Well, that would mean that it would have to be a square, because if the width is not greater than if the length is not greater than the width, then that means it could either be the other way around or the same. But we know it couldn't be the other way around, because if it was, then, by commutative property, it would be the same thing. It wouldn't matter. So it would have to be that they're equal to each other. So it's basically saying which one of these is a square, which one of these things that's a perimeter. Well, if it is a square, then we would have to divide these by 4, Well, it said it had to be, the inches had to be in whole numbers, so anything that doesn't come out evenly couldn't be what it was. So that didn't come out evenly, so it's not that. It's 37. And square these to find the areas. Well, we know which one's going to equal 144, so it's this. So that one, the key is just knowing that since it said it's not possible, it would have to be a square. I don't know why I just made it a square. Oh, because I tapped that. Okay. All right. Plans for a diving pool call for a rectangular prism that has length of 30 inches. Okay? Width of 25 inches. And a depth of 5 meters. I don't know why I said inches. Sorry, meters. If the plans are changed to increase both the length and the width by 10%, and notice that it didn't say depth, so that would mean we'd have to multiply these by 1.1, really 110% of what it was. What is the new volume? Well, what is the old volume? We have to multiply all three of those things. 30 times 25 times 5. The old volume is this. Sorry if I'm starting to talk fast and not clear, because I'm just trying to, because 46 out of 78, not that good. Alright, now 30 times 1.1 plus 25 times 1.1 times 5, then, oh, I must have done that wrong, hang on. 30 times 1.1 times 25 plus 1 times 1.1, whatever, times 5 is, the new thing is this. So we divide old by new, old by new, so this divided by this, to get, and we got 1.21, that means it's 21% increase, because the original thing was just 1. Okay. Alright, here it says, AC is parallel to DE, BD equals AD, DE are on AB and BC. This is 8 feet, this is 10 feet. Well, once again, this is kind of thinking backwards. Why would they make this question? They wouldn't say all those things for no reason. Even if you don't know your rules of things, you would just naturally assume that that means that that would have to be half of that if these two things are half of each other. Why else would they give you that problem? So the answer is 4. Alright. Remember, if you don't know something, you always just choose something like I just did. You just do it logically and just move on to the ones that you can't do. Alright, it's saying, what is the area in square units of the shaded region? Okay. Well, if the total thing is 6 here, this is 2, well then these are both 2. If this total thing is 5, this is 2, well we have 3 left, so this has to be 1.5, this has to be 1.5. Area of this, that's 1.5 times 2, oh, that's 3. Okay. This is an easy one. It's basically just saying, it says a bunch of things that are pointless. It's saying, what is the area this will cover with paper? Basically it's saying, what is the area of this kite? Well, the area of a kite is going to be half of the area of a full rectangle. So the full rectangle is 28 times 40. So imagine that this was a full rectangle. Well, these two things are the same, these two things are the same, these two things are the same, and these two things are the same. So that's how you know that the kite is half of the full thing. So we do this. And that is 560. So that's pretty simple. Oh, okay. The mayor of Westbrook is deciding how to assign the 6 council members to these seats. How many arrangements can she choose? Well, that's kind of like the permutations, remember? Remember this. N divided by n minus r. Except, sorry, that is out of it. So what's the number of things that there are? 6. What is how much each time? Each time is just 5. Or wait, what? Sorry. Wait a second. Oh, wait, never mind. That's not what you would do. Sorry. Is it? We're not trying to find that. Simply what you would do is this, actually. It's just 6 factorial. You don't have to do the rate thing, because it's not really a rate. It's like 1 each time, but that would make us divide by 5 factorial, and that's not what we do. So the answer is 720. Because notice each time there's less seats. Okay. A company builds bridges. They used a pile driver to drive a post in the ground. The post was driven 18 feet. Every time that it's hit again, it's 2/3 of the distance of the last time. It's hit 4 times. How many feet is it driven to the ground? Well, here's the first time. The second time, it's going to be the same as the first, but 2/3 of it. The third... Oh my gosh. The third time, it's going to be the same as the second, but 2/3 of that. So, oh, now it's like 2/3 of that. And then the fourth time, well, I'm not going to write it, but just it would be 2/3. You would see 2/3 there. And that is that. Alright, this one's actually not that hard. What is equivalent to that? Whenever you see a negative exponent, you can just, the same thing, you can just put it in a denominator with a positive exponent. Never think that makes it a negative number, though. Alright, here's a kind of a dumb thing. Sometimes you see things like this with vectors, I, j. I don't know. It's really never that hard. But it says vector ai plus 3j is added to negative 2i plus bj. And the sum is 6i plus minus 6j. What is values of a and b? Well, here's these things equal this. So ai plus or minus 2i equals 6i. So a must be 8. Oh, and luckily we would just know that it's e because that's the only thing that's like that. Okay. All right, here's a Pythagorean identity. If you don't know your Pythagorean identities, I would go on. Well, I would just look them up. But really the only one that I would assume that they would ever use is this. So just know that this is true. So just remember, this is true. So no matter what things are in the arguments, it's going to equal 1. So that's why it's 1. You don't get mixed up and think they would be 7. Obviously, it could not be those because it always has to be squares. Squared, whatever. Oh, look, another one of those stupid ones. There's always at least one on the test. Just saying. If you have to think about it too hard, just choose an answer and go back to it later if you can, but it's not really worth your time. These are just like time drainers, as I call them. It's just trying to mess you up. But here's how you would do this one, and it's just dumb. So the real numbers. A is greater than 0. That means it's always positive. Well, what's something that's always positive? Well, if you take the absolute value of something, it's always positive. B is always negative. Well, that would just mean that even if you took the absolute value of it, it would be negative B. Now, something that's kind of confusing to me, they are real numbers. So it wouldn't be a real number if you took the absolute value of it and it was negative, would it? But that's supposedly the way that you're supposed to solve it. I personally, myself, am confused by this one. So I apologize for that. But that, if the absolute value of a is a, this is negative. Oh, negative. That's apparently how they want you to solve it. But like I said, if you see something like that, and you don't understand, just go past it. Oh, and we have another one. This might not seem like one of those, but it is. X is less than y. Y is less than 4. What is the greatest possible integer value of this, x plus y? Well, something that they're trying to confuse you with is they might make you think that x and y are integers, but they don't have to be. It's saying x plus y is an integer. So y has to be less than 4. Well, let's just say that y is 3.9, and x, that would mean, and we can just say that x is 3.8 or something, because it has to be less than y. If you add those together, that's 7.7. Well, so now we know that it couldn't be 8. Now we're forced to think, well, is there a possible way that it could equal 7? Yes, if x was 3.4 and y was 3.6, that follows these rules, and we do get an integer answer of 7. That's a hard one. Alright, here is something where you have to know your ellipse equations and circle. But it's saying the larger circle equation is this, the smaller circle equation is this. Well, always with this thing is the radius squared. So that means that the radius is 5, the radius is 2. So the radius of the bigger circle is 5. The radius of the smaller circle is 2. And now it's saying what is the equation of the ellipse? Well, for an ellipse, the thing that's under the thing that's bigger is called the major axis. And it's squared, so you would have to take the square root of it. Well, that would make you think that it's not C, hopefully, because you can't take, or A, because you can't take the square root of 2 or 5 and make it even, or a whole number, whatever. So the major axis is basically, it seems kind of like a radius of the ellipse, but it's like the longer one. So this would be the major axis. So the major axis is 5, so we would, and it is in the x direction. So 5 squared is 25, so that's how we know it's D. And 2 squared is 4, and that's by the y. So that's how we know that that's what it is. So hopefully that makes sense. Alright. Alright. I don't even know how long I've been doing this, but wow. Alright. We have 20 more problems to do. Let's hurry this thing up. Alright, an integer is abundant. Sometimes we'll have some random thing like this. If its positive integer factors have a sum that's greater than the integer. So it's saying it's abundant if its factors, when added, are greater than it. So how many of these are abundant? Well, let's find the factors. Factors are 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, and 4, 1, 2, and 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6. Let's add these. Not greater than 6, not greater than 8, not greater than 10, yes, greater than 12. So only 1 is. Alright, this is like a comparison of ratios. All you have to do is multiply them. 5/7 times 4/3. 20, 21. Alright, now it's saying first this equation, which one of these could show the value of C to where it has no y-intercept. C is just something that moves it up and down, because notice it's not in the parentheses with the x. This is, if you don't know your sine, what a sine graph looks like, it's like a wave, and it goes through the origin and just goes down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. So if C was positive, then it would go up. If C was negative, it would go down. But it always, normally, with C being 0, it goes up to 1 and it goes down to -1. So C would have to be greater than 1 or less than -1 for there to be no x-intercepts, and it can't include it, because if it did, then it would touch it ever so slightly. So that's how it's not E, it's D. Alright, Tamika calculates that she needs 360 square feet of new carpet. But the type of carpet she wants is priced by square yard. How many square yards does she need? Well, you might know that 3 feet is 1 yard, so you might just think that it's 360 divided by 3, but it's square feet, so it's not the same. So if then 1 square yard would have to be 9 feet squared. So we would actually divide it by 9 to figure it out, and that's 40. A little bit tricky. What is the greatest common factor of these? Oh, I already talked about how you find the greatest common factor, but a quicker way to do it is just simply dividing all these answers and figuring out if it's a whole number. So 45 divided by 5, whole number. 50 divided by 5, whole number. 84, not whole number. For 50 divided by 3 is not a whole number. 45 divided by 2 is not a whole number. Of course, it's not 0. That would not even be anything. So it's 1. So here's just kind of like a word problem one. It's $5 a month plus $2 per movie rented. So, both of them are MOs, of course. I'll just say movie, MV. What's the relationship between M, the number of movies? Well, this is why they're trying to confuse you, because you might naturally think that M is months, but it's movies. So basically, we're really MV. And T is the total cost. So I guess we wouldn't need a variable there, and this would really just be M, since it said M is movies. So the answer is C. But you would think that it's D if it was months. So that's why that one's dumb. Okay. If you can get all these, then you should be fine, because these are the hardest ones. But anyways. Okay, so we're going to have to use that arithmetic sequence. Remember, I already talked about that probably an hour ago, because of how long this video is. So, let's see. So, we're trying to find the nth term. Well, we can just do D. Alright, let's see, D. D is going to be 4. It changes by 4 each time. But it actually said general expression. So can't talk, can I? General expression means that there's no -1. So bye-bye, we don't need that. So we'll just put an N here. What's the first term? Oh, don't think that it's 1. It's actually -3, because it's 0, the 0th term, whatever. So it would be 1 minus 4. So it's -3. So rearranging this to normal things that we usually have, it's C. So remember, general expression, no -1. Okay, so we don't even really have to read this, because we see in the graph, okay, it's basically saying what relates to side lengths. We do have to read that part of ABC. Well, across from X is A, across from 2X is B, across from 3X is C. Well, it always correlates. The greater the side, the greater the angle. Or the greater the angle, the greater the side. So it's going to be ABC. Okay, and here's something, like I said, this was meant for more than one problem. But let's just look at the problem. On Monday, the resort sold 1 ticket to 8 members of the Herzog family. Assume this family is a representative sample of all the skiers. So why is it saying that? Well, it said above that it sold 200 tickets. So we're going to have to do a proportion. When in doubt, proportion. Or algebraic equation, but whatever. 25 were first-time skiers. It did say that the question is saying what were not the first-time skiers. So let's just figure out what were the skiers. So 25 out of 200 were the first-time skiers. So how many were first-time skiers for the Herzogs? There's 8 of them. So that means that 1. That's what it would end up being. 1. 1 was a first-time skier. So the ones that weren't first-time skiers, that's key, was 7. Okay, so it's saying how many x-intercepts does it have on the interval 0 to 1? Well, there's not a line under these signs, these less than signs. So that means that it's not going to include the places 0 and 1. So not there, but every other part where it touches x-axis. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Of course, they have answer choices to throw you off if you did think that. All right, right here, when we see angles like this, we can just draw out the lines like to make it look simpler. So it's basically saying what is M bad. Oh, and I think this was another one where it was supposed to be for more than one problem, so just forget that. What is the measure of angle bad? This is angle bad. Well, it's going to be the same as this, we know corresponding. And this whole thing would have to be 180. So 180 minus 71 minus 42 is what bad is, and that's 67. 10 more questions to go. It's saying, for this one, all right, the diameter. So that's what, you skip past that stuff that you see on the graph, so it doesn't matter. We see that. All right, it's saying constant rate of 75 feet per minute. How many, so it's basically saying this thing is rotating. How many minutes does the engine take to do a figure 8 pattern? You might not know what that is, but that it's just saying a full rotation, so it would have to go by the area of both. So we have to add the areas of both. That's what we're going to have to do. The area, or not area, sorry. Circumference. I meant to say circumference, sorry. The circumference of both. So 2 pi r isn't, that's d, so we don't want to do that. So it's divided by 2. All right, that's adding them both. That is 80 pi, if you're just keeping it in pi form. And you divide that by 75. It doesn't matter if you did it in pi form or not. Because if this is feet, how many feet the circumference is. This is feet per minute. So that's why we're doing that, because we cancel out the feet. We're trying to find minute. And that's 3. Approximately. Oh, look, another one. At least this one isn't as dumb, because let's just say all these values are this, because they're all in that order, and we'll just see what we get here. 2/3, and we're trying to find which one's the greatest. All right, so 1 plus 2. Okay, it's 5th. That's 5 or 7. The greatest one is that. All right? Oh, wait, no. The greatest one is not that. Because, oh, jeez. Whatever. All right. So, because actually, 5/7 is 0.71. 0.75 is greater than that, so. All right. Oh, this one's a little bit tricky. So, the wind blowing against a flat surface exerts a force of this. And it's equal to A, which is the area. Oh, wait. The wind blowing. I don't know. It doesn't tell us what it's equal to, but we can just say that. So, it's saying Oh, it's a force. It's force. That's what it is. So it's equal to force. So it said that the force was 50 on a 1 thing. We don't know what K is at 40 miles per hour. So we would have to find K. K is 1/32. And then we're plugging it into a different equation because we're trying to find the maximum force on this. So 132, 1/32. Surface area is 2 this time. Velocity is 80 this time. And that turns out to be 400. So sorry that I'm going fast. I just have to. All right. All right. Someone is pouring cement into this thing. It's 4 inches deep. There's each bag has that. How many bags will they have to do? Well, we need to find the area of this thing, and then we'll multiply it by the how deep it is, and then that's the volume. So the area, this is going to be 40. This part, don't say that it's 20 times 4. It's actually 16 times 4, which is 64. You add those two things together, the total area is that. We have to multiply it by the depth to get the volume. But we're going to have to multiply by 1/12. That's the conversion factor to make it feet, because we need it to be feet. So this, we'll divide by this to say how many bags it would be. That's about 58. Right? Oh, this one is insanely difficult in my opinion. But let's figure out how to do it. Remember, we said this before about the average things. The average is a sum over the total. So it's saying the total of 10 test scores is X. So, or the average is X. So we don't even need to put A there. We'll just say A is the sum divided by 10. And it also says Y is when the average is going to be 8 scores because the high and low are taken away. So the high and low are taken away from the sum of X. So we can just say sum X. And now we're trying to find the average of the high and low score. So the average of H and L. So we have to divide them by 2, but what the heck do we do? Well, we're going to just have to get that by itself. How do we do that? How in the world? Well, we're going to have to change these to where the sum is on both sides, so we need to make the sum gone. And so we can say that the sum of X equals 10X. And then here, the sum of X, that would equal 8Y. So now what do we do? Remember, we're trying to get H and L by itself. So the sum, since we found out the sum is 10X, we can just plug that in right here, 10X, so that's gone. So we're only looking at this right now. So we're trying to get this by itself, so we can subtract this onto the other side. Equals H plus L, the high and low score. Well, average we have to divide by 2. So, I mean, that was like a stupid problem, I'm just telling you. Once again, if you get something like that and you can't think of what to do, just choose an answer. But that's how you would do that. So if you get something like that, then that's what you would do. Oh, so this one says, this is a super dumb one. Each face of 2 cubes is numbered 1 through 6 and has a 1/6 chance of doing it. What is the probability that the numbers on 2 dice will be less than 6 when you do that? Well, according to the ACT, there's only one way you can do that, is that you can write out all the combinations. 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 5, 1, 6. All right. We don't need 2, 1, because we already have 1, 2, same thing. 2, 2, 2, 3, 2, 4, 2, 5, 2, 6. We don't need 3, 1. We don't need 3, 2. We can have 3, 3, 3, 4, 3, 5, 3, 6. And as you can see, you pretty much just start on the thing that's just both of them are the same. And which sum is less than 6? Less than 6, less than 6, less than 6, less than 6. Less than 6, less than 6. There are 6. Wait a second. 6 out of 36 is not a choice. Oh, wait. Wait a second. Oh, so the other combinations do count. Oh my gosh. So 2, 1 does count. 2, 2 does count. 3, 1 does count. 3, 2 does count. And those are also 1s. So it's 10 out of 36. So that's 5/18. So that's why that one's dumb. But whatever. So if you... all those combinations count. So sorry about that. Alright. Alright. At 2 p.m., this is kind of like the other car one. Remember, it was like Anila and Jacob or something. Louisa leaves Kansas City in her car, traveling east at 68 miles per hour. Antonio leaves, and he's going 78 miles per hour. The total distance they're going is 240 miles. When will they drive past each other? How do we figure that out? Well, we're going to have to do, when in doubt, we do an equation. The total thing is 240 miles. And we're going to do this, and I'm going to tell you why. Think about it. 68 miles per hour. T is in hours. That's on the top. The hours cancel out. You're finding... Oh, wait. T is in hours. And... Oh, wait, maybe that... Never mind. That's not a good way to explain it. But when we're doing this, we're going to find the time. And that both of them have the same... time is the same for both of them. Or not... They're not going to get there... they're not going to get there at the same time, but the measurement of time is the same for both of them, if that makes sense. When you solve for t, it is 1.92. You need to do 1.92 times 60, or sorry, 0.92 times 60, because it's going to be 1 hour and that's 55 minutes. So 1 hour and 55 minutes after 2 is 3:55. There are 10 points on a plane. No 3 are collinear. And that's just... That part doesn't matter because that's just like a common rule. Okay. 2 at a time. How many distinct lines? Don't sit there and try to draw the lines. We're going to use the permutations. Remember? N divided by N minus R. So... How many different things are there? There's 10. 2 points at a time, that's the rate, 2. And when you type that into the calculator, it's 45. There you go. We got 2 to go. Right. Here's another one that's dumb. What must be true for 4 consecutive positive numbers? That means 4 numbers that are in the row that are positive. So an example is 1, 2, 3, 4. But this is what I'm talking about. When you just think of an example, think of more than one. Because one might be the case and the other might not. So 1, 2, 3, 4. At least one is prime. Okay, that's true for these numbers. They have common prime factor. Yeah, all of those are true for those. But think about different ones. 33, 34, 35, 36, 36. Or 36. If you notice... not all of those are prime. None of those are prime this time. So anything that has 1 in it is not true. If you only did that, you might be tempted to say E, but you have to test other things. So at least 2 of the integers have a common prime factor. They do. Because 2 is a common prime factor of 36 and third 4. So 2 is true. So we're down between B and D. At least one of the 4 factors is a factor of the other 3. So at least one of the 4 integers is a factor of the other 3. Oh no, that's not true. So it's 2. Alright, final freaking question. Oh gosh. Well, we're gonna have to do this. And remember with the other one when it's cubed, we can't get around this time with that. We actually have to multiply this whole thing out. How do we do that? Well, here's what I would recommend. First, just do this. This is just squared. It's squared. So x squared. So if you, x squared, and then this would be 2x plus 1. Now that's done 2 times, because pretend like we did it over there, because we can separate this into x. We can separate this into squared, and we multiply them. So now we have 3 digits, so we cannot do FOIL this time. We have to do something called box method. And it's like this. We put each thing on a different edge, basically. Like this, and we just multiply each combo. Okay? So this would be 2x squared, this would be x squared. This would be 2x cubed, this would be 4x squared, this would be 2x, this would be x squared, this would be 2x, this would be 1. We're trying to find the coefficient of x squared, so we combine the x squareds. This is a x squared. Oh, that would actually be x cubed. Maybe I just couldn't tell, so not that. This is a x squared. This is a x squared. This is x squared. 1 plus 4 plus 1 is 6. That is E. And there we go. There you go. Up. Scroll this thing up. That was 78 dumb questions. So if you're taking the ACT, good luck.